Hello there. We're into the final week of this year's very long, very heavy election campaign, so I thought now is a great time to get some final catch up moments with the public gallery. Depending on when you watch this or listen to this, we're about a week out from the close of this year's election, which is October the 14th, for those of you in any doubt of when election day is. And while election night is going to be one of those nights a lot of people sit around chewing their nails and hoping that things work out the way that they want it to work out, I'll be at Free FM in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, with their election night coverage. So make sure that you tune in. You can listen to them live at freefm.org.nz. What I wanted to do, though, for this last episode before the election was to catch up with the whole gallery one at a time and ask them really specifically about this year's campaign and whether or not at this point, so close to the final days of being able to cast a ballot, they've made up their mind about whether or not they're going to vote and if they know who it is that they're going to vote for.
Yes.
Yes, I have.
100%.
90%. Like, I'm not solid at who I'm voting for. It's not like, yes, this is it, done, sorted. I'm still balancing a few forms, weighing a few things up.
At this stage, I am undecided.
With every election, every individual has their own priorities that they want to see come into government or that help them decide where they're going to cast their vote. And it's really important that as individuals we know what those factors are that lead us to how we're going to vote. So that was the follow-up question I had for everybody. What factors have led you to make this particular decision about how you're going to vote this year?
Health, the health spend and how they're allocating it and what they're doing and why they're doing it. Crime, like my brother got broken into recently. A few other people I know have been broken into. Like, it's hitting, like, there's lots of shops getting ram raided and shit, and that's just, like, do you even bat an eyelid when you hear about ram raid now? You're kind of like, oh, they got done. You feel like, oh my god, they've been done. Now it's like, oh, it's not good. It's not a norm I like. Yeah, crime, how it's affecting everyone. Business, which I essentially think come back to tax.
Mainly because I want to see how everything develops right before the election day. Clear example was the whole 250 a fortnight, and that turned into a week, and then it turned into 3,000 families. So, that type of stuff you've got to watch out for when it comes to an election. So, political parties can pull some quite nasty tricks to, get up people's sleeves in order to catch votes early on than rather later when polling closes.
Oddly, it was National's policies.
The decision for the party vote was really easy. All I was looking for this year is that there wasn't a change in policies that would make me start to look elsewhere. There wasn't. And all that has happened over the last few months is that I am more firm in who I think will be the right one for me. And it's basically along values is where I've based my decision on rather than individual policies.
Some of the factors that drove me there were, for instance, which electorate that I'm in, how I can be tactical about using my vote within that electorate context, but also who do I want to see in Parliament, who has the policies that are going to benefit me and people like me.
Aotearoa has one of the longest voting periods out there. 2 weeks before the general election on October 14, the polls are pretty much open. Not all of them necessarily, but there are enough early polling places in each electorate that if you wanted to, you could go in and have your say early. During the 2020 election, we saw massive amounts of people do this, in part out of fear for COVID being in the community. Spreading out the time that people voted made it much less likely that there'd be a congregation of people. That's not necessarily the case here, but very early numbers coming in from early voting have shown an increase on the 2017 numbers, but also well below the 2020 numbers for early voting. Early voting is one of those signs that people want to get out there and have their say, that they are determined to make their voices heard. But I wanted to make sure that our gallery knew what they were doing in terms of voting. Were they somebody who enjoyed the revelry of an event day to go out and do your vote, or did they see something more practical in going out and voting early?
Most likely just to avoid the crowds because it sounds like COVID is coming back pretty hard.
There's something about going in on polling day and voting. It's kind of surreal. I don't know. I've always liked it. It's kind of weird.
I think that I will vote early because I'm quite anxious. Like, I love a good wait till election day, get the election day sausage and the sticker and show the child all about that. But no stickers, that's true. But yeah, which really does feed into my changing of my decision. I am so paranoid I'm going to get sick on election day and I won't be able to make it to a voting booth. So I'm going to vote as soon as I get rid of this cold.
Yes, I will be voting excitedly on Monday. We've got advanced voting where I work, and I'm on holidays at the moment, so I'm looking forward to going in and trying to encourage the rest of my team to go in and vote at the same time. I'm fairly certain we have quite a politically engaged team, so I don't think it'll be too hard.
This campaign has had some interesting moments, from a very lackluster first leaders debate through to the Prime Minister catching COVID just days before the campaign was due to end on the eve of early voting starting. But at the same time, well, there doesn't feel like there's been a huge amount of difference between the two main parties, and what we've seen from the smaller parties has generally been, well, it depends on the party, to be honest. Te Pāti Māori and the Greens have actually been running relatively positive campaigns, and it hasn't got a lot of public media coverage. And parties like New Zealand First and ACT, they seem to be hit quite a bit with conspiracy-fueled candidates that cause some concerns for voters. The idea of Winston Peters coming back into Parliament and rising in the polls is something that's got a few people scared, and seeing somebody like Christopher Luxon deciding to side with Winston Peters and some of his more controversial policies over refusing to work with a group like Te Pāti Māori, well, the campaign itself has had its ups and downs, but what it's going to be most memorable for is just how nasty it's been. So, one of the things I wanted to ask our gallery members was a really simple: what has been the most memorable part of the campaign for you so far?
Winston Peters trying to get back into government. I think that's a very memorable kind of thing for me. Despite him being an old guy, I don't think he deserves to come back. We're in a new kind of normal. We've built back better. Uh, we've built a future that should be prioritized and future proofed. And I don't believe his policies or his political party has any of those types of values. And when they say New Zealand first, I don't believe that is for the people. It's more so bureaucracy. So my influence on his party, my kind of thoughts on his party, I should say, is a no go. But that's just a memorable kind of position that I have. Yeah.
What I'm going to remember about this election is how horrible it is. I can't wait for it to be over. It's nasty and toxic, and there have been times where I didn't want to vote. So I've done a whole heap of, I guess, thinking that I don't want to vote because it legitimizes this bullshit system, which is kind of how I was feeling at the start of the election cycle. But I've become, I guess, more angry, frustrated, and really sad over the last couple of months.
Have to be the videos we've done. No, seriously, I've quite enjoyed it. It's made me think a lot more about the politics and what I want and really look into it. But no, it's nothing particular. I felt this whole campaign's all felt a bit hollow from everyone. There's obviously ones I'm like, I ain't voting for them at all. That's just a given kind of thing. But it's not from being early outset going, yeah, I'm 99% there. Someone else has got to. I'm never going to say I'm 100% there until I literally tick the box in the polling. Do we tick it? What do we do? There's really been nothing memorable. Well, there's the odd stupid thing that people say, and then like you see in the leaders' debates and on the breakfast shows, and they say some dumb shit, and then the other person just like no points, like gives them some truth kind of thing. not slanderous or whatever. It just they say like it's not engaging the brain before it comes out your mouth kind of thing. There's the use of that, but there's nothing being super memorable. Really, for me, the memorable thing is it's just lacked substance and oomph, and yeah, that's who I want to vote for. Kind of feel.
I want it to be a nice one. But obviously we've just seen a Māori Party candidate, a 21-year-old Māori Party candidate, might I add. Like, I remember running for office at 21, and it was a really worthwhile challenge, but such a challenge to do that. We've just seen her have her house invaded, and that kind of attack on her personal security is just really jarring, and that's what's stuck in my mind from this campaign, unfortunately.
How do I put this? The grossness of this campaign in general, like the threats, like I'm doing the social media for a candidate, so I've seen behind the curtain to a degree. So I've seen things that people on the street probably don't realize are happening. So I've seen death threats, like with my own eyes. This isn't just like, oh, poor me, look at me, the gangs threw a bear at me, national stuff. This is actually like I've actually seen death threats, you know, believable death threats against candidates.
This election campaign is already being memorialised in some ways. We saw this week Tova O'Brien from Stuff calling this one of the worst election campaigns out there, that it will be remembered for just how horrible and nasty it was, and she's not wrong. There's been claims all the way through of nasty politics and dirty politicking and attack ads and that kind of stuff. There's even research that's already been done on that while we're in the middle of the election campaign, which pointed out that when you compare the two main parties, the National Party has much more negative and attack ad content during the election period than Labour does. But at the same time, it notes they're on the back foot, they're in opposition. Attacking is what they need to do to get people to talk about the issues that they want them to talk about. But overall, it's been a really long campaign, an exhausting campaign. Even from the viewpoint of somebody watching it from the outside, it is tiring. What hasn't been getting quite as much coverage, though, is local campaigns. Now, as you recall, our gallery are from all over the motu. So, what exactly have their campaigns been like? Do they know now who their local candidates are? Because when we started, some of them didn't. Let's find out what they thought about their local campaigns. And let's start off with Scout, who's in Te Tai Tonga, which is the largest electorate by a long shot.
What local campaign? I mean, like I've said in other episodes, I'm in the Te Tai Tonga electorate. This election, I haven't even gotten the form letter from the current MP. I've gotten absolutely nothing this election. Um, I have heard more about other electorates. I have heard more about other local electorates in particular than I have heard about my own electorate. So even the Dunedin New Zealand loyal candidate has had more airspace in my feeds and my just who I walk past on the street. They've got an entire storefront on our main street. I've seen more from them than I have seen from the candidates who are actually standing in my electorate.
In Hamilton East, where Dan is, well, it's a little bit of a muddle, to be honest, because that electorate currently has 6 candidates that are running that have been known to spread conspiracy theories, misinformation, disinformation. It has the largest proportion of candidates, 60% of them, that fall within that category anywhere in the country. So it must be a slightly awkward race to sit down and watch from the inside.
In the beginning, I saw a lot of National Labour stuff, but now it's joined those minor parties, those like your likes of Greens and ACT. I call them a minor parties, and then there's the non-parties, all those other weird ones that I just don't think. Well, they're not. Well, you never know. Don't say never. They're not going to get in.
From a historical perspective, Sam's electorate of Tairi is fascinating. It was created in the mid 1860s and it lasted until 1908. Then it got redistributed and redrawn as Dunedin South. But in 2020, it became Tairi again, with the redistribution of population from the Electoral Commission redrawing the lines, and it became part urban, part rural. But for the last 10 years, Dunedin South and Tairi have been Labour strongholds, and chances are it'll probably still be a Labour stronghold after the election. But there's been some fascinating elements about the particular race down there. For example, you had Stephen Frank, who was the original National Party candidate for the electorate, who stood down after some social media posts came out that were kind of derogatory towards women. And this is one of the electorates that has the most independent candidates running, three of them for the entire electorate, which is really quite fascinating to see such a large number of people put their name forward. So, what has Sam's impression been of the local electorate? Considering when we started this, he was one of the few people who didn't know exactly which electorate he was even in.
Um, yeah, I'm actually starting to see Ingrid Leary quite often in the news, especially from Newswire sources. It's really interesting because earlier on in the Public Gallery podcast, I had mentioned that there wasn't really much interaction with communities. And I would say the last 2-3 weeks, kind of late September till up till uh, this episode at present times, there's quite a lot of interaction, um, especially like calling out other political parties. But there's still that lack of community interaction. It's more so, big Wellington debate.
Hamilton West, oh my god, something in my glasses. There's a bit of an irony about our last electorate. It's Hamilton West. It is probably the most electioned out electorate in the entire country after last year's local body elections and a by-election and then this election this year. It feels like the people of Hamilton West are going to the polls an awful lot. And usually it's seen as a bit of a bellwether seat, but the Labour Party campaign there has been kind of minimal, and Tama Potaka, the National Party MP, he's only been in the job a year, so there's kind of a sense of maybe we should just give him a go, which again is a little bit ironic considering his party is the one that wants to bring back 90-day trials and no-cause terminations. It's a bit strange, I guess. In that electorate, though, we've got two of our gallery members, Art and Kelli. Let's see what their impressions have been of their local race.
Pretty lukewarm. Like, it seems quite, I don't want to say relaxed, but more like, yeah, kind of inattentive.
Nothing that I haven't like I've seen the call floats. There's not many, but I've seen call floats. We haven't had any things in the mailbox, and I'm on a main road. It's fine. I follow the social media pages for the main candidates, not all of them. I don't have time to follow them all because I don't think that I've got, well, yeah, there's no reason for me to be following some of them. I know that I'm not going to be voting for them, but I did follow the main ones. That's how I've kept up with what's going on. But all I see is a whole heap of selfies, no substance. They don't really tell us who they are as people, and yeah, I'm not overly inspired by any of the candidates locally. Or one I'm quite impressed with, but can't vote, feel like I can't vote for because I feel like it's a wasted vote.
Our electorate races are really, really important when it comes to a general election. They make up 72 of the 120 seats in Parliament. There is a huge amount of influence that comes from, well, you being represented directly in Parliament that way. It's one of the reasons why MMP was set up the way that it was set up. And your party vote, while is very important, is therefore a general guideline of which way you'd like the country to go, whereas your electorate vote could be something that affects you directly. So, if you don't know who your candidates are yet, there is still a week to go out there and do some research. Of course, depending on when you watch this or listen to this, if you're watching this after the 14th, that's slightly awkward. But there's plenty of time to go out and do the research, and there's plenty of resources on vote.nz about who your candidates are. And from there, you can just Google names and find out the information. I would thoroughly recommend, if you haven't done so already, to definitely get out there and do that. I had one more question, though, for my panel. And I think this is possibly the most important question because, well, it's so simple, deceptively simple, and we kind of think we know the answer to this already. But I wanted to know why people should go out and vote.
To have your say, every vote counts. And if you don't vote, you cannot moan about the outcome. And it really annoys me when people go, "Oh, I don't like this government. Did you vote? No, it's a waste of time." Can't moan. You cannot complain. You had no say. It could very well be that one vote. Entirely likely not, but how many people don't vote? How many available? Say it's 2 million can vote. There's probably 500,000 that don't.
So, a quick editorial interjection here. The number of people who don't vote does vary from election to election, and the last election was actually a pretty high turnout. Generally speaking, you're looking at 25 to 30% of the eligible population not voting. And they do tend to cluster around younger people under the age of 40, which made up about 275,000 people in that age bracket this year who weren't even registered going into the election period. At the flip side, voters over the age of 50 were enrolled at a rate of about 95%, and they tended to have a 90 to 92% chance or ability to get out there and vote. So older voters are much more likely to get out there and have their say than younger voters. To answer Dan's question.
Dang, that's high. Wow.
Our decision for who we vote for this election is so much more than just one small decision. Like it's a decision that is going to change so much going forward, not just for the next 3 years, but the policies and the laws that are changed during this next 3 years are going to impact our children's lives, our grandchildren's lives, because it does have a really long reach, and it reaches into every part of our life, whether that's how much we pay to go see the doctor, or it's the quality of the roads that we drive on, or it's whether or not we can um, access a benefit if we lose our jobs. All of those things are very much everyday decisions. Even the quality of our food and our medicines. So it's really important that we vote for the people that we trust to be able to hold that responsibility going forward for decisions that are really going to affect us for years and years to come.
I know people should vote, but it seems like it's a done deal. But people should vote because some of the policies that are being put forward by some of the parties are going to affect you negatively. And you might think, oh, well, I don't really care about politics, so that means they don't affect me. That's not how it works. They will impact you. They will impact your neighborhood. People should vote because it's like the old saying, if you don't vote, then you can't complain. But that's not really true. Because even if you do vote and your vote ends up going nowhere, you can still complain. But at least now you'll say, well, I tried my best.
At this stage, to keep out the nasty racists and conspiracy theorists, I wish I could say vote because it's the best thing for your kids and your grandkids in the future. But at the moment, I feel like people just need to vote to keep some people out. And that might not be the best way to vote or the best reason to vote. But I think that's it kind of sums up where I am at the moment with our political system. Just vote to keep the nasty ones out of there.
Every election we get told that this is the most important election, and there's a reason for that. Because it is. Our political system is set up so that every 3 years we get to have a say in the direction of our country. And whether or not I might agree with you politically or not, doesn't change the fact that your voice is as important as mine, that your vote has as much power as my vote has. And that's a really important element to our democracy. So, whether or not you think the direction of the country is generally right or wrong, whether or not you feel that your candidates on offer for your electorate are going to represent you or not, that's entirely up to you to decide. And I personally think it's really important that you get out there and have your say. I can think of a million reasons why you should, and I can't think of many reasons why you shouldn't. And that, well, to me, is one of the core tenets of what democracy in action actually is, about the reasons behind why we have this process, because everybody should have a say in the direction the country is going in and what's important to them. So, whether or not you think it should be about taxes or health systems or education or, I don't know, anything else that's out there on offer at the moment, it's really important that you go out and have your voice heard. And it is a super, super simple process. If you're already enrolled, it'll take a couple of minutes to go in and cast your vote. And there are voting stations all over the place. On election day itself, there'll be even more out there if you want to vote in the revelry of the moment. But it's still really important, no matter where you are, that you get out and have your say. Even if you are a New Zealander living overseas, you can still vote. So please make sure you get out there and do what you need to do. Do what needs to be done to put the country in the direction that you feel it should be going in. It's it's your right, and it's kind of a privilege to get out there and have a say in the direction of our country. Now, this is our penultimate episode. We've got one more episode coming up, but there won't be an episode next week because it's election day. And there are really strict rules around what you can do in terms of campaigning and media and stuff like that. So I'll be at Hamilton's Free FM, which you can listen to on freefm.org.nz. Anywhere in the world, you can live stream the results through there, and I might do some live streaming broadcasty things as well. But what I want you to do before then, before the 14th, is get out there and have your say. And hopefully, listening to what some of the people in the gallery have had to say over the last couple of months has helped you see their perspectives or see a different point of view to the ones that you'd normally be presented with. And I want to thank my gallery for joining me for this. We'll be catching up with them again in a week after the election to see what they think about the results, because we should know by then the general layout of what's happening. There will be some changes to the vote night tallies because special votes and international votes are counted afterwards, and we generally see a couple of percentage point shifts happen when international and special votes are counted. Generally speaking, though, this has been a long, tiring campaign. It's almost over. We can see the finish line. And all you need to do now to make sure we get over that finish line is get out there and have your say. Look, until the week after the election, have a great week. Go out, vote. Encourage everyone else you can to go out and vote. And I will see you guys next time.